name is Greg Finch. I'm the outgoing Chief Engagement Officer for NPH, and it's my pleasure this morning to introduce this session, SLDS Data Story, Year 6 Employment Trends by Education. The Statewide Longitudinal Data System, or SLDS, is a key component of Indiana's Workforce Data System, or EWDS. Better decisions require better information. We all know that. This is the principle that lies at the heart of the Statewide Longitudinal Data System. The purpose has helped propel the successful design, development, implementation, and expansion of 4 core systems: early learning, K through 12, post-secondary, and workforce, in order to create the longitudinal data system that examines data over time, allowing for the analysis of both past and future education and workforce outcomes. Through the commitment of many people to this cause, including many people in this room, Indiana is recognized as the nation's leading SLDS program. As established by legislation, Management Performance Hub collaborates with several agencies to provide data analytics support for SLDS. And a critical outcome of this analysis is the employment trends at education level for Hoosier High School graduates 6 years after graduation. A key indicator of capacity for Indiana to identify, produce, and sustain the workforce qualified to drive our economy. And with us today are 2 of those people that make this possible. Bryan Zaczek is the Principal Data Scientist with Management Performance Hub. In that role, Bryan and his team input, process, structure, and analyze hundreds of millions of data elements relating to the education and workforce characteristics of Indiana citizens. Prior to joining NPH, Bryan was a scientific advisor for the Strategic Tradecraft and Technology at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, where he advised senior leadership on advanced technology, including artificial intelligence. Bryan is a native of Niagara Falls, New York, and a graduate of the Rochester Institute of Technology, where he earned a bachelor's degree in imaging and photographic technology. Also joining Bryan is Hali. She's a new Senior Director of Engagement Analytics at NPH. She's coming on board at the beginning of this year to fill the shoes of Tyler Brown. Tyler, are you here? Yeah, he's probably late. Who is a former SLDS portfolio manager who moved up his career ladder to become a Director of Data Management Analytics for Indiana Department of Education, where he continues to collaborate as a vital member of this program. To say that Hali hit the ground running is an understatement, as Indiana has not lost an inch of progress on this critical program. We're thankful for her coming over to NPH. Prior to coming here, Hali was the Associate Director of Student Services for the Kelley School of Business at IUPUI. She holds a Master of Education degree in Higher Education and a Graduate Certificate in Business Management, both from Indiana University. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in Communication from Cedarville University. So please join us in welcoming Bryan and Hali.
So glad to be with you. I am Hali and excited to spend some time with you this morning telling a story in one of my favorite ways, and that is by using data. So I don't know if that title really enticed you, or if you just found a really comfy seat in the opening session and did not want to leave it. Either is good, but I'm hopeful that in the upcoming few minutes, one of the goals of this is to see big picture, how data can help us tell stories. I'm going to give a little bit of an intro, and Greg covered a few of these points. But first, what I want to do is kind of provide that context for the story that we're going to tell. A little bit about how did this story even come to be. And that is through our Indiana Education and Workforce Data System. So Greg referenced the SLDS grant. I'm going to talk about a little bit about that in a moment. But this system is really at the heart behind some of the research and the studies and the projects that we're able to do at NPH. Comprised in this system, you'll see it's an assortment of data groups and subsets. So everything from K through 12 education, post-secondary enrollment, social services, and it is through the integration of those and that we're able to do longitudinal studies to look at groups over spans of time. Obviously, any one of these areas, if we were just to look at K through 12 education, that is great information to have. And it tells us a lot about what's happening in that group. But when we're able to combine it with post-secondary, with wages, with workforce training, and bring in those different sets of data to study a group, it makes the picture even more developed, more full, and creates greater understanding. Through this system, we've been able to help with policy making, program administrators, educators, employers, to be able to use data to inform practice. A little bit about the Statewide Longitudinal Data System. I want to give acknowledgement again to the Department of Ed for their help in securing those grants year after year. Indiana first received the grant in 2009, and then in 2012 was really where a lot of the development happened for the EWDS system. It continues to be funded through that grant. We actually just received funding through 2027, so excited to see the research and the work that will continue to come out of that. And with that, I want to thank all the EWD partners, so the Department of Education, Governor's Workforce Cabinet, the Department of Workforce Development, and the Commission for Higher Education, who all contribute to that. So MPH, the Management Performance Hub, doesn't own any one of these single data sets. It is through the collaboration of those agencies that we're able to pull together data to tell that story. And so before I transition to Bryan, a couple things that I would encourage you to think about as we go throughout this particular story. Micro level, I hope that there's an interesting fact or a statistic or a trend that really stands out to you that you're able to take away. Macro level, I hope that as we go through the presentation, you think about the benefits that come when you're able to use data in combinations to help tell that story. Again, one set is awesome, but when you're able to pull it together with additional sets to see what's happening to groups of people over spans of time, it becomes even more impactful. And so I think this story is really a testament to being able to do that. So that's the context. Bryan, will you tell us the story?
Sure.
Okay.
Good morning again. Haley kind of mentioned it's a team. It's a big team effort. Sangeet is actually here in the third row, who's our PM for this. We have an entire data science team that works with this and the other priorities of MPH. The slides provided today and actually created today, and most of the research that I'm going to present to you was actually from our former senior data scientist who has recently moved on from the state. We just put together this presentation. I'm going to do my best to run through all of the unique aspects and details of it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to bring those back. I mention that because that also creates a new opportunity for somebody else. We have an open position within MPH for a senior data scientist. So if you find this work that we're discussing today interesting, please make sure to check out that job opportunity and apply online. As I mentioned, I'm a data, technology, and methodology person. I really like to dive into individual data sets and try to understand what's the meaning, what's the new insights we can get from it. He just kind of mentioned this, how we look at tying multiple systems together. Just real quickly in the background, one of the things that we utilize is a record linkage algorithm. That record linkage algorithm can take individual PII from each one of the data systems and essentially create a broader picture of connections between people so we can track across from an education record to a wage record to other things. One of the things that we've kind of developed is this 6-year benchmark. The 6-year benchmark is basically to take people in the same period of life, which 6 years post-high school graduation. So it gives you about 4 years to graduate with a bachelor's degree, and then 2 years to get your foot into the workforce, and then also that career path, and another year after that to really solidify. So the 6-year mark after graduation. What we're going to analyze today is cohorts. So we're going to take those years, walk them, those cohort graduated years, we're going to walk them forward 6 years and look at the outcomes across wages, different types of occupations, and then what I consider this is the closest you get to looking at the past, the present, and the future of Indiana through a single lens, but through multiple microscopes. Let's start off with the highest level of education. So in our cohort classes here, 2017 through 2023, we see a ever so slight dip in the high school diploma, and that's actually made up for because we have a slight increase in our bachelor's degree and certificate and associate's degree. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the limitations of the data, some of the things that we can measure, some things we can't measure. Things that we don't get are out of state. We know that a significant percentage of people do go out of state to both public and private institutions. And we also currently aren't including in this analysis work private education data. So this data is based on you attending a Indiana public school that we have access to the data. Let me go back and one more thing. The certificate or associates includes assessment certificate through the career and technical education. These are some of them under certificates and associate's degree, earned from public Indiana, so we got that. And then bachelor's degrees, simultaneous degrees, public institutions. All of this is made in a very complex way, so you can have stackable degrees. You can earn associates, then go on to get a bachelor's, and then we take basically the highest level of education achieved. We get employment in Indiana. The number of individuals employed in Indiana 6 years out is about 10% higher for those with a certificate. The associate's degree is their highest level of education in comparison to a high school diploma. If you pay attention to the last column here, that's the percentage of individuals in Indiana currently employed in Indiana, and then based on each one of the education levels. So these are individuals that are showing up in our IU employment wages records. So you can see we have a little bit of a difference between certificate and associate degree holders, bachelor's degrees, and high school diplomas. If we expand this out to look at multiple cohort years, from 2017 to 2023, we can see that we have a slight impact, 2020, 2021, and 2022 from COVID, but then an overall increase coming into 2023. Threshold for success, when we want to look at employment and education outcomes, you set some type of a benchmark for wages that could be achieved and the standard of living that you would achieve here within the state. One of the things we use is MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Living Wage Calculator. So it creates a cost of living on an annual basis, and it's geographically dependent, so each city is individually calculated. And then we use that to basically compare an hourly rate walking back over time. What we can do is we declare that benchmark as success, but it's also not the only measure that you could use for educational attainment and post-education job achievements. This is kind of the breakdown to give you an idea of what the MIT living wage consists of. It's about $826 per month in housing, $282 for medical, internet and mobile, $124 per month. Food is about $296 per month. Transportation, $204 per week. And then other necessities, $79 per week. Civic engagement, leisure, $56, and then income tax. That gives you an annual pre-tax income of about $42,500 or $36,228. If we take that dollar figure, which is about $20.44 in 2023, and we walk that backward using CPI for adjusting our consumer-based index based on inflation, basically gives us back in 2017, you'd have to make about $16.44, up to $20.44. The MIT living wage has changed over time from not only the methodology used for calculation, but this was the approach that we took from 2023 to walk it backwards. And if you look at the total number of people, this data shows across the story, 32% of those employed in Indiana by IU covered salaries 6 years after expected high school graduation made more than the MIT living wage. Broken down by education level, you can see the percentage all the way to the right of how many individuals 6 years after graduation were making the MIT living wage. You can count the individuals in the middle, and then you can look to the left for the total number that are employed within the state. Things that this doesn't include. So it doesn't include currently 1099 employees, it doesn't include gig workers, it doesn't include additional tips and other things that wouldn't be included within the wages. This would be strictly for an employer that is currently most likely a salary or hourly, that is covering its employees under unemployment insurance. So if we take these cohorts and we look at them over time, we can actually see that we have a slight uptrend here of the number of individuals that are meeting the MIT living wage. The green line representing the bachelor's degree, which increased from about 50% up to 54%. Our certificate and associate degree holders, which are widening a gap between the high school and diploma less, increasing up to almost 40%, and our high school diploma now at about 30%. Limitations of this. So as I mentioned, it doesn't include every single job out there. It doesn't include jobs that are more cash-based. It doesn't assume any additional gig work that may be taken in this advent of the gig economy. But this gives you a rough perspective overall supply of jobs, and then as well as supply of wages for skills within the state. This is important because it shows quite a bit of overlap. a little box and whisker chart here. The dotted line across it is the MIT living wage in Indiana. The thresholds here are the actual box showing the median as well as the distribution. I guess the key takeaway I would look at this is there's quite a bit of overlap. So as we talk about different types of pathways within the state, we're seeing a slight growth in the number of pathways and opportunities that exist across all sorts of educational pathways. Here you can see the bachelor's degree in green is ever so slightly higher annual wages, which elevated above the high school certificate. However, if you look at the certificate associate degree, and you look at the high and the low, actually it's quite a large range for wages that are occurring within the associate's degree and certificate level. We're going to talk a little bit about the power of EWS in action, the employment outcome trends. A couple different ways that we can take the wages data and actually start to drill down even further within it is we can use a NAICS, which is a North American Industry Classification System. That's a code, and that gives us a type of industry that the person is in. So if it's manufacturing or healthcare, it's a digit system, so as you go deeper into the digits, it gets more specific. There's technology, there's basically every single occupation that you could think of, and those are the codes that are put in there when somebody's submitting wages to the unemployment insurance, so we can see the growth of different industries and the education and payments of the people that are being supplied those industries. One of the things to kind of keep in mind is this is not demand-driven data, so it's not saying what the job market actually is and how many constituents or how many employers are attempting to hire. These are two supply sides. So this is showing the supply side of jobs and the supply side of our Indian education and degree holders. So we're going to go into a couple of charts. Essentially, we're going to look at the intersection between jobs available and jobs taken by high school cohorts. This chart is pretty interesting. What you take is the original cohort from 2017 and compare it against the cohort of 2023 to look at the differences. So the blob size actually represents the overall number of occupants from that cohort that are taking that particular job. The axis to the left and to the right is a change in the number of jobs that we're seeing that those cohorts are taking. And the y-axis is actually the salary change that we're seeing that's been adjusted based on inflation. So comparing the 2017 cohort against the 2023, one of the shifts that we see is an increase in the medical, surgical, hospital, basically jobs, as well as an adjusted CPI increase of wages of roughly $5,000-ish, $4,600. The two blobs all the way to the left that have seen some of the greatest reductions. Any guesses what those are? Greatest reductions in number of employed? No, good guess. Fast food workers and restaurants. As you look at a lot of the industry that's gone to automation, I'm sure many of you have been to McDonald's lately. The counter person, the automated tellers, even gas stations, even quick service stations that have reduced the work. But we've seen that also shift into other areas. We're going to show one of the largest increases on here is actually, if you go one off to the right, is delivery services like Amazon. So we've seen one of the largest increases of that. Again, the real value of this system is kind of the crystal ball for you to understand what's actually happening. As you talk about these education pathways, different career paths that people are pursuing, what Plinko buckets are people ending up with it? And how are they changing their careers over time? Specifically, what geographic areas are we seeing growth? I'm going to walk through, so keep in mind that is for high school diplomas or less. The same, but associate degrees or certificate holders, we see the same general wage increase as well as number of individuals employed in the industry also increase in hospitals. If you actually look at the previous graph and this graph, you'll notice the actual spread that exists between the occupation rates remain more stable. And also the wage increase, the number of bubbles that are actually increasing up, means that wages are increasing for inflation-adjusted industries. Then as we look at bachelor's degrees holders more, a greater increase in number of job demands, as well as also a
greater increase in salaries. Average salaries raised by more than $6,300. Median wages now cresting just $59,600 in 2023 compared to 2017. One of the things I'll talk about is the ability to do this. I'll share a QR code at the end. You can see the actual report that this is generated from. You'll have access to. You can read the documented notes that go along with it. Not every single industry sees the exact same growth and the exact same changes. Here we're showing registered nurses as well as radiographers. In the bottom right, we see with bachelor's degree, we actually see a slightly greater increase, almost 200 individuals. Whereas in certificate and degree holders, slightly less. Radiology also has a slightly smaller, slightly larger increase for bachelor's degrees compared to certificate and associate's degrees. So the compensation that aligns with your overall education aligns across many of the different occupations. Nursing is one of the interesting industries because it has so many different tiers that exist within it that you can basically continuously get additional certificates, degrees, to grow in a broader job path. Because you have the individuals matched also with wages, it allows you to look at the median wages that exist over years between the cohorts. So again, as the cohorts are entering, you can see the impact that COVID had on the left graph here, where in 2021 and 2022, significant wage increases. Based on our research, it looks like potential impact from bonuses, additional increased patient workloads, additional overtime earnings, additional sign-on initiatives that happened within the nursing industry likely led to a quick increase in wages. However, they've come back down. If you look at the right-hand side here, you can actually see the individuals with credentials employed steadily increasing. A small difference in the year 2021. Other things it allows you to do, because we do record linkage across all of our different records, we can look at demographics, we can look at genders, we can look at all sorts of different slices of the data. This is the nursing, so we can look particularly at the ratios that exist between females and males, and see if they're changing between cohort years. We can do that in every single industry. We can do that in every single subcategory and every single region. I'll just look at data from basically any particular perspective now that everything's together into one system interconnected. Some of the trends here, as I mentioned kind of earlier, out to the right, delivery services had a strong increase. Also warehousing. You've probably noticed that around Indiana, many more warehouses popping up since the pandemic. We're seeing that here in the data with almost 600 individuals being added, as well as slightly above average wage. I mentioned the geographic sense of that. Boone County actually stands out in the data as having the largest increase of warehousing and storage facilities. In 2017, we had just 26 people from our initial cohort entering. In 2023, it was 513. So the percent of individuals employed in warehousing in Boone County dramatically raised from 9% to 52%. Again, the possibilities of essentially driving through the data and looking at different aspects of it becomes endless. What it really becomes is how many questions can you ask and how many different policy measures can you implement or to change to improve the pathways and outcomes that exist. Okay, I'm going to wrap here. This is the QR code if you're interested in the actual report. This is built on our Shiny server. For those of you R programmers out there. Kind of going back, it's a broader team effort. There's lots of different questions that are kind of being asked. I think the main takeaway I have with the project overall is it's exciting to see so many people interested in understanding the data, and not just from their own experiences, but wanting to know what's in the data. As I kind of mentioned, this gives you kind of the past, where things were, present, where we are, and then allows us to look further out into the future of predicting where things go in the job markets. So, with that, thank you. If you guys have any questions or follow-up, Haley and I will be up here. If not, enjoy the rest of your day today. And as I mentioned, if this work interests you, please go ahead and visit and apply for a data science position.